All right, thanks to everyone who's joining us tonight for this special edition of Real Word uh, Wednesday. We greet you in Jesus' love, and we thank you so much again for being with us. If you're with us for the first time, we are absolutely elated to have you. MastersChild church family, you know, we love you most much. First Lady, we thank God for you. My mother, co-founder Irma Robinson Fitzgerald, we love you. And all the leaders, everyone who is with us on tonight. I am absolutely elated to have one of the daughters of the ministry with us tonight. I had been talking to her about doing something like this for a minute, but obviously she's been busy trying to hold things down in this trying and challenging climate we've been in. And the DMV has not been devoid of its challenges as well in this area. And in fact, I was just informed by the sergeant here. I'm a referred to her as Sarge, relative to what happened in Southeast Washington, D.C. And I just saw it on the news as well. This young 18-year-old black male who was gunned down in Southeast D.C. And of course, you know, we have to wait until all the particulars are disclosed to make a judgment about it. But it's real out here. It's just real. And I want to thank Sergeant Alexia Love for agreeing to be with me tonight, because what I want to do, I want her to utilize her expertise to educate us on the issues of policing and that kind of thing, because we see what's going on in this nation, and it's definitely just it grieves your heart as relates to what you're seeing. But as I forestated on Sunday, I believe it's going to take an all hands on deck type of approach to bringing about resolution to these issues that we are dealing with in this nation, especially when it comes to the engagement between community and law enforcement. So what I want to do is make sure that at least we are using our ministry platform to express that we are broadening our view of ministry and our approach to ministry. We understand that it has a spiritual side, but I don't think you can really be effective from a spiritual perspective if you don't engage in what people are going through socially, you see. So that's really my agenda relative to what happened Sunday. And I believe Dr. Preston did an excellent job in her presentation. And I know we are going to be educated thoroughly through the expertise of Sergeant Love tonight. So with that said, I want to give Sergeant Love an opportunity to have some remarks as an introduction. And then we're going to proceed with questions that she's going to help us navigate through. And while we hear, if you have any questions, you can make those questions known in the comment box, and we will address those questions to Sergeant Love and then proceed from there. So thank you so much, Sergeant Love, for being with us on tonight, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me, Bishop. I just want to thank you for giving me this platform as an African-American police officer in D.C. Trust me, policing is not easy, especially in today's climate. And I wanted to come on and kind of give like a little backstory about law enforcement and where it actually came from. And so African Americans have a long and painful history with police officers and being attacked, whether provoked or not, on the street, in their homes, being killed, brutalized for the slightest or pettiest infractions. Police officers were used as a tool to launch centuries violent and racist behavior towards Black Americans. And this goes back some 400 years ago, and it actually started with slave patrols in the 1600s during the slavery period. And slave patrols were tasked with hunting down runaway slaves and stopping slaves from becoming rebellious. The slave owners were fearful that their enslaved would rise up against them because they were outnumbered. So these slave patrols were volunteers and consisted of white men who surveyed and attacked Black people and anyone who tried to help them escape. They weren't designed to protect public safety, but rather to protect white wealth. Okay. Slave patrols were done away with in 1865 after the passing of the 13th Amendment, and then more modern police departments were formed. So African Americans were still heavily policed by law enforcement that restricted property ownership, employment, and other behaviors. So whenever Black Americans protested against segregation and other racist laws, police were called in and used. As Blacks gained more rights and privileges, lawmakers on both sides of the political aisle looked for ways to criminalize the Black community. And for example, that's like they started the war on drugs, harsher prison sentences, 3 strikes you're out, and the crime bill, stuff like that. And so Black Americans are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police than a white person. Mm. And just so you know, in 2016, the Trump administration cut programs that investigated local police departments for racism and excessive force. So what's the difference now? What's the difference now? Blacks aren't the only people taking notice of the disparaging level of brutality against people of color. So now we have eyes on us from white people, Black people, everybody has eyes on us. So this is where our engagement with the police has come from. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys to start off. And thank you for that little bit of history.
Wow, that. And I don't know if many people know that. Honestly, I don't, and so I just that tidbit right there, I think is very helpful from an educational perspective, so we can know where all this is rooted in, and the genesis of all this.
Yeah.
In terms of, police and community engagement. That I'm definitely going to do some more research on that, because I did not know that. So thank you for sharing that information with us. Again, if you have any questions, please note those questions in the comment area, and we'll make sure we'll do our best to get those comments to Sergeant Love. So we looked at a theme for this discussion tonight, this conversation, and it led us to this question: why is injustice a debate? And I'm going to say this, Sarge, because this is the thing. So you mentioned this in terms of how we are able to have a front row seat to observe some of the injustice that's going on in America. For instance, with George Floyd. And the thing is, I can't look every time I watch that video, and I've somewhat stomached the ability to watch it, because it's hard to watch, but I had to watch it today, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what can somebody possibly argue, right, that will make sense as to what this officer did to that man? But that, when it comes to, the argument, for justice, and then the argument to actually breach justice for George Floyd, it's going to happen. Somebody's going to come up with some type of narrative, some type of something to try to make sense of what we saw happen to George Floyd. So it's a whole lot of examples that I can disclose, but just with that, so that should not be debatable. Like we shouldn't have a conversation about whether that was justified or not. Clearly, we can see that just by merely observing what the officer did to George Floyd, that was just unjust. That was just uncalled for, and it wasn't justified, right? So clearly, there are some issues that needs to be addressed in policing in this nation, right? That lead to positive outcomes. When I say positive outcomes, I'm talking about outcomes that are not that are non-life threatening in nature. Okay, when dealing with police, right? So, and this big huge issue, in my estimation, is the unnecessary use of lethal force. You see. And so I want to deal with that because I believe there needs to be accountability across the board. Now, there's criminals, I believe, in the community, but there are criminals amongst cops. All cops are not bad. And all white people are not bad, and all black people are not thugs. You see what I'm saying? So we have to clarify that right out the gate. We're not talking about everybody. But we do know that there's some criminal activity going on through the actions of people in the community and amongst cops. But all cops, all community members are not bad. All right. With that said, because I do believe there needs to be accountability across the board, whether the accountability of those in the community that are, showing behavior that's criminal, and the same thing for law enforcement. So how do we hold these officers accountable? Is it something the community can do in terms of police accountability when we see these kind of things happening? Like you said, observing these things, in real time happening. Is it something that the community can do that can hold these police officers accountable?
I would say some things that the community can do when it comes to police officers and holding them accountable is do your part. And when I say do your part, don't just talk about it. Don't just jump on social media and tweet about it. Attend your local community meetings and your town hall meetings. Write your council members, your mayor, your community leaders about your concerns. File your written complaints, because I hear a lot of people tell me, "Oh, well, this officer did this and this officer did that." And the first thing I ask is, "Did you make a complaint?" And the answer is always, "Oh, no," and it's always an excuse. "Oh, they ain't gonna do nothing anyway." But but you didn't even try. So I would say file your written complaint against any officer who you feel has violated you. Write down patrol car numbers, badge numbers. If you can get your phone out and record, and if you can get anything, a car number, a badge number, a name tag, be persistent about not allowing the agency to get away with poor police service and or misconduct. So if you feel like you have been violated or something happened, you weren't right, you were profiled or whatever, write your complaint, file your complaint, call back, be persistent, follow up. Don't just let somebody get away with doing something to you. So I would say do your part and follow through with it.
That's good. That's good. As far as these recordings, it's within our right to do so. That it's nothing illegal about us standing there recording the actions of a police officer towards someone in the community. The police does not have the right to confiscate our phones for that reason. Am I right?
No, to a degree. Okay, so you have, as long as you aren't impeding an arrest or trying to impede an officer from carrying out his or her lawful duties and rights. Normally, if they have a area roped off, normally there's an area for media and other people to record and take pictures, right? Okay. So as long as you're not standing in an actual crime, in a crime scene or impeding an officer from doing it, they should not be confiscating your phone. What we as the community have to realize that when someone has been violated, hurt, killed, stabbed, whatever the case may be, we have to be sensitive to that person's family as well. And when we pull out our cell phones and we're recording someone who just got killed, or someone who was lying in a pool of blood, and we have our video and we posting it on live, that victim has a family. And so we just have to be sensitive about the things that we post when we do post. So, or when we do take our photos, because if you are taking video or pictures of evidence, then your phone can possibly be confiscated as evidence.
I think that is so
you
good.
have to be mindful about that.
That's so good to know. Thank you for sharing that. That is very good to know. Very good to know. Okay, so if an officer shoots a citizen, okay, what's the protocol at that point? Once that shooting takes place, what happens?
The protocol for the officer. First, once the officer pulls out his gun and shoots him, whether he pulls his gun out and shoots him, whether a taser is used, whether any type of force is used, and the citizen is hurt, first the officer should attempt to render first aid and call emergency medical personnel. That's off the bat. Okay. Once they get there and they safely get that person to the scene, the officer would need to make notifications to his or her supervisors, and the supervisors will make notifications to internal affairs. In all cases of let me just first say this. I'm only speaking from DC Police's protocols. I can't speak about any other jurisdiction other than the one that I work for, because I really don't know. But with DC, all police shootings are handled by our internal affairs investigators. So internal affairs gets there. They will lock a scene down. They will put up crime scene tape. They will canvass the area for eyewitnesses, any videos that may be by nearby businesses, or if anybody has cell phone footage, they will take statements. The officer is afforded some rights as an officer. He would be taken off the scene for his safety as well, because sometimes police shooting scenes can get very hostile when family members start showing up to the scene. So they take them off the scene. Their lawyers, union is contacted. The lawyers are contacted. They're advised not to make any statements until they get what's called a letter of declination. And the letter of declination is basically that comes from the U.S. Attorney's Office to say whether they are going to prosecute you or not for your shooting. And so once they get all the facts, like how this came to be, and once the U.S. Attorney's Office decides that yes or no, we're not going to prosecute you, then an officer can give his statement. But that's pretty much, and the officer is afforded like a on-call, like a employee assistance person, which is normally a psychologist who comes in and talks to the officer, because shooting someone or being involved in a traumatic incident can be very stressful. And so an officer would have to speak to someone. They would normally put them off for a few days to make sure that they're psychologically and mentally that they are okay. So from there, it's just investigated. And the internal affairs agents, they do a very thorough investigation. They go through our protocols to ensure that all of the steps were taken to ensure that this officer, utilize the appropriate force necessary to that situation. So that's basically what happens. And sometimes investigations take a little bit longer. I know a lot of times people want to know why is it taking so long, or why hasn't a statement been made? But sometimes it takes a while to investigate.
Okay. Excellent information. Excellent information. Your frame was freezing just a little bit, but we heard you vocally. So we live, so that happens. Good information,
Okay.
Sarge. Good information. Wow, this is good. All right. So, is it true that the police are protected by autonomy?
Well, yes, to an extent. So police have the legitimate right to use their powers and authority to make specific policy and tactical decisions, and not be encumbered by external demands. And when I say that, without autonomy, the police would not be able to do their work in accordance with democratic norms. Meaning, so if I stopped you and you say you can't give me a ticket because my uncle is the mayor, like that. So yes, but police autonomy is granted on the implicit condition that the organizational police department will carry out its work in a manner that abides by the rule of law, follows professional standards and ethics, respects the democratic rights of citizens, and treats all citizens that the police come in to contact with in fairly, and that the organization will control the discretion of individuals and functional groups, meaning like their SWAT teams, their K9 units, their undercover officers that's within that organization through appropriate managerial techniques. So you can't just go rogue and do what you want to do and think that you're going to be covered under autonomy. So yes and no.
I think that's really what the audience needs to know, that you just can't do anything and think
no. Can't do anything you want to do.
Gotcha. All right. Excellent. All right. So what are some ways that cause like an automatic firing of a police officer?
Well, I know with my jurisdiction and my agency, there is no such thing as an automatic firing unless you are a probationary officer or a reserve officer. So probationary officers and reserve officers are not covered by the union. So officers have union rights, and those protocols have to be followed. You have to follow a process and a protocol in order to fire someone. So if you don't follow those protocols in that process, the officers all have a chance to fight to get their job back. So at MPD, there's no automatic. There's nothing you can do that is an automatic firing. There's still a process. You have due process.
So look, okay, I get that. So no matter how egregious the crime is, it can be just as bad as it can get. They still, because that's the automatic cry. Like in George Floyd's case, we watching this man, this officer. His knee is on this man's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. All I'm saying, he's got to be fired. He's got to go. He's got to go right now. So that's just not the case.
It still has to. A process he still has to go through a process. Now, an officer can be placed on administrative leave. They can also be placed on administrative leave without pay. But normally, when an officer commits some type of misconduct, has been arrested or whatever, he still has a right to go through due process. Meaning, if he's been charged been charged by someone, maybe he may have done something in another jurisdiction, and they charge once the officer's been indicted and then he's been convicted, then they can hand down a firing. But it's a process. It doesn't just happen automatically, like boom, you're fired. People who are covered under union have rights, And within our department, the only people who aren't covered under the union, who are subject to automatic firing, are probationary officers or recruits, those who are in the academy, and reserve officers.
I do remember that. I remember that. The one thing I did not want to do as a recruit is do something stupid and lose my job. That's absolutely correct. Now, Sarge, I want to ask you this because so just go with me on this scenario. So the officer is fired, but he still can get a job somewhere else. Am I right? I mean, is it anything preventing him from getting a job if he gets fired here and he goes to California? I mean, can he still find employment in law enforcement?
Possibly. So the thing is, it depends on what agency or who's hiring. Normally, if you have left a law enforcement agency with negative blemish or whatever, because the reality is, officers get in trouble. They make mistakes, and a department may fire them, and before they fire them, they may quit or resign. So their record is saying that they didn't get fired. Wow. So they may resign and go to another jurisdiction or another agency that may not trip off of someone being let go or potentially being let go, but you resigned. You know what I'm saying? So most jobs will say if you resign, you could never come back here. You could never be gainfully employed with our agency. But it doesn't mean that you won't get employment with somebody else's agency. It just depends on what their criteria is.
Yeah, and and I think that right there has been like something that I've heard many debate regarding, officers' ability to find employment somewhere else within law enforcement after, committing an egregious crime, basically, and they're fired and they go find employment somewhere else. Thing is, and I think they were talking about creating a database, right? So if that officer tries to find employment somewhere else and not disclose the fact that he just, he was fired for committing a crime, at least that information would be available for that law enforcement agency to make a judgment of whether or not this person needs to be on the streets policing anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So I hopefully that happens. What is your take on that?
I do know that with any, I do know that when it comes to domestic violence, I do know that any person who has been charged or charged with domestic violence or has a history of domestic violence arrest on their record, that they can't carry a gun at all.
Okay.
So that means they can't be in the military. They don't qualify for any police jobs or any jobs that requires them to carry a firearm. And so I just believe that there should be some mechanism in place or something in place where if you have if you're not fit to be an officer with a particular police agency, that you shouldn't be fit to be an officer with any police agency. So that's just how I feel.
I got you. Got you. So I think we was talking about. I think this kind of ties into what we've been talking about because the next question is, how long does it take for an officer who has been found guilty, not guilty based on how the public views the officer being guilty, but just officially guilty. How long does it take for that officer to be reprimanded?
Well, it depends because with most police department or agencies, you have disciplinary procedures that must be followed. Officers have rights too. Believe it or not, they do. They have rights, and a lot of them are covered under union contracts on what management can and cannot do to them. So some of these serious misconduct allegations take a lot of time to investigate, and you can't rush them, because when you rush them, there's a chance that an officer who gets reprimanded can have his reprimand overturned, or if he's recommended for termination and he's terminated, there are a lot of times where he can get his job back. And I do know a lot of officers who have gotten fired, and 4, 5, even 6 years later, they get their jobs back. They get back pay. They get all their stuff back. They get their time back. So it's very incumbent upon an agency to take that time and do a thorough investigation. And sometimes it takes time. And a lot of times, as the public, we're watching the TV. They like, why aren't they arrested? Why ain't they doing? And so and sometimes these cases have a lot of moving parts. You have a U.S. Attorney's Office that's trying to get they're trying to make their case, and a lot of times, if a U.S. attorney is trying to make their case, they want a strong case because they don't like to lose. So if they feel like this is not a strong case, this is weak, the person has a good defense on why they did what they did, they're not even going to touch it. And that's why you see a lot of U.S. attorneys won't even bring charges against the officers, because they make it very difficult to bring charges against officers.
Wow, that is so good to know, and you're absolutely 100% correct about that. Wow, and that's something that the public, really needs to know, right? You can't rush this process, because at the end of the day, you're right. All of it can just backfire, and guilty is all outdoors. But if you don't respect that process, you're absolutely right. That certainly can take place. So the next question is about training. So do you think the current training practices that law enforcement have in place right now, or the lack of training, do you think that's contributing to police brutality?
Yes, but not solely. And I say that because I feel like police brutality contributes to a lot of factors. Training, lack thereof, is just one aspect of it. You have management, you have culture, and a criminal justice system that discourages prosecutors from pursuing police misconduct. You have a political system that respond more readily to police than to our citizens in inner cities. And see, when here's the problem: when the officer knows that he's not going to get prosecuted, or how likely is it that the behavior is going to change? If you have the people that are around you that don't, pull you up, call you out, tell on you, or there's a thing called the thin blue line that you're not supposed to cross. So when you have all of those things and all of those factors there, I believe that it does contribute to police brutality, but is not just the training.
Wow. Good to know. So, and I think you touched on this a little bit as well. So, when citizens want to report an officer, what's the proper protocol to enact that?
Well, I wouldn't say this thing is a proper protocol. There are several different ways that you can file a complaint against an officer. Most major police departments now have what you call citizen complaint review boards, where you have an outside like a review board made up of citizens that aren't police. And they kind of pretty much handle a lot of citizen complaints. So you can always contact them by phone. email or old-fashioned way, write a letter and write it in. But you can also walk into any police station and ask to speak to a supervisor or say, I would like a citizen complaint form. Most police departments now have citizen complaint forms that they are required to give you if you ask for one, and you can write out your complaint. But it also always helps to know where this incident happened, if you got an officer's name, if you got a car number, if you even have his description. All of those things help in aid in identify. If you don't necessarily have a badge number or a name, all of those things help identify where an officer may have been from. If you don't know the name or badge, but you know on the corner of this, right by this, we can pretty much kind of narrow down where it happened or what jurisdiction or police district that officer may be from. But I would say gather as much information as you can when filing your complaints, and then follow up. You can always look online. I know MPD has phone numbers online of each commander of each station. It has the chief's name and his email address, and you can always email him, and he will forward those emails to the proper chains to get that complaint looked at. And every citizen complaint, we don't just throw those things in the trash. Every police complaint that we get has to be investigated.
Excellent. If somebody in the community wants to acquire, identification about, regarding an officer, is that officer required to provide his identity to police-wise, his identity to that individual?
In DC, yes. If you ask an officer his name, he is required to give you his name and his badge. And most officers do carry business cards, so you have a right to ask him for his business card. And so yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, got you. Thank you. Couple more here, and then we do have some questions that have come in from our audience tonight. As a police officer, how do you view, what is your personal view regarding community police relationships?
I believe that although the community and police officer relationships have vastly improved over the years, I still believe we have a lot of work to do. And when I say a lot of work to do, I mean a lot of work to do on both sides. I know tensions can be extremely high when it comes to a lot of the stuff that we've seen in the media. I think both sides, the community and the police, have to be open to listen and really hear one another, hear the heart of the community. And our leaders of our police departments really need to articulate a lot of the things that the officers go through, because what you see on TV is not necessarily how it is in real life. And by no means is being a police officer an easy task. Putting your life on the line every day for people who hate you is not an easy task. Providing protection and aid to those who will spit on you and call you every name in the book but the child of God, that is very hard. So and yes, we one of the things I hate to hear was, well, that's what you signed up for. No, I did not sign up to be spit on. I did not sign up to have a brick thrown upside my head. I signed up to help and aid people. I signed up to give back to the community that I came from. Those are the things that a lot of us have signed up to do, but just the climate and the things that have been gone on the media and the news, it's a trying time for everybody. And so I feel like we still have a lot of work. And I believe my agency, MPD, has done tremendous work with providing African American cultural training. They They required every officer to visit the African American Museum, and they required us to sit in a like a 90-minute presentation that was given by a historian that came in and taught all of the officers about the history of the police department and a little bit about what I expressed in the beginning, how the police weren't always used for public safety, but they were used as a tool to a weapon against people and against the Black community. And that's why it has always been a strained relationship between the Black community and police officers, because we were actually used to inflict violence upon them. And so we still have a lot of work to do, because we still have residue from that history on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's awesome. Lastly, and I thought about this, because is this even possible? And I should be optimistic in terms of the chances that we have and the potential we have as a community and the law enforcement throughout this nation, and in particular MPD. And I guess we have to find a way to do this. So I guess the question to you is, what are some ways to bridge the gap between community and law enforcement?
I would love for, because like I said, I believe I just believe my department is the best when it comes to community relations and community policing. We have units that engage in all types of communities. We have police officers that we have Asian liaison unit. We have a Latino liaison unit. We have units that cater to the whole community, the LGBTQ community. So we have officers that cater to every community, but we don't have any African American, community or units. Not to say that they aren't needed, because we're there every day, but I would love to see our departments hiring more people that look like us, that come from our community. And these things have changed over the years, because when I became a police officer, they recruited us right from high school. They put us in the cadet program, and we got an opportunity to come from the community and then go back and police the same communities that we come from. The hiring process now is so different, Bishop. When I tell you, they have created, you have to have college, 60 college credits. You can't have bad credit. And who does that X out? Most of us. Okay. So, and because they really can't find suitable candidates from the community in this area, what do? They go up north, they go to Delaware, they go to Pennsylvania, they go out west and recruit these people from places and communities that have very limited exposure to African Americans and our culture. They don't know us. They don't know how we respond. They don't know our culture. And so I was just having this conversation the other day, like when Black people get upset, when we're emotional, when we're hurt, we use our hands. We're very animated. We get loud, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to hurt you or harm you. We may ball our fist up, but we may be angry at the situation, not necessarily at the officer that is communicating with us, but we express that. And when they see that and they don't know our culture, they're like, "Oh, I'm scared." I feel attacked, and that's not necessarily true. So I feel like bridging the gap would consist of training and having more exposure to our culture, changing some of the hiring requirements that allow us to recruit members from the community to come on the department and be able to police the same communities that look like them, And so I just want to be able to be the change that I want to see. And I'm on my way out the door. So the people that are coming on behind me, I want them to come on the department to make a better department to say, look, I want to be that change. This has to stop here. So that's the only way I see of bridging the gaps, and more of our community leaders becoming involved, because it's a difference between getting on social media or typing a post and then actually getting out here and doing it.
Wow. That I tell you that is excellent, Sarge. Excellent. Before we go into the questions that have come in from the audience, I just want to say that this has been awesome. I mean, the information that you provided me. Now, I'm a former PG County officer, but I was back in '97. I maybe stayed on maybe 2-3 years, but it's a different world. And this is your what, 20th?
This is my 28th year.
28 years. Wow. And I'm so glad that God has kept you.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, and He's preserved you. And like you said, you don't have long. And I'm just praying that, and I know God's going to see you through it. And, I thank you so much for lending your expertise to this conversation, because I know that something was said tonight that we didn't know. And I think being educated on these issues, I think it's the first step in making sure that, if we do, and it's not an if, because we really do need to get engaged uniquely in terms of making a contribution effectively when it comes to resolutions and solutions that we need to all collectively, lend to bringing some resolve to some of these issues that are going on in law enforcement. And you laid it out. I think we can really use what you have imparted into us uniquely to make that happen. I guess, Sarge, this is my question. It's personal in nature, and then I'll go to the questions that have come in from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
I've had this conversation with this conversation you got to have when you are an African American father and you have an African American son. Now, I'm telling you, I'm having this conversation with my daughter as well. They're driving now, and Lord knows when they leave out, I can't even sleep. It's traumatic for me when they leave out, because all I want to hear is that garage come up. That's all I want to hear. They went out, they went somewhere, and they got back safely. I mean, you got to pray now when your children leave, because you want to pray they come back safely. Sarge, what do you do when you give them that talk? They comply, they do everything that Dad said, and still they have either an unpleasant, response from police officers, or in some instances, they never come home. Do we need to change the conversation? Is there something else I need to say? Please help me on that part.
I don't know what else can be done. And it what's unfortunate is even in this climate, even after George Floyd, more people are still dying. More people are still being killed. And so it's very disheartening being in law enforcement and being a Black woman. I'm a Black woman with a husband with two sons, a daughter. So it's very disheartening and I just happen to be able to briefly understand both sides. And when I say both sides, I mean, like it's very hard when I see a shooting or see a video that pops up online. It is a lot of times I don't even make any statements because I need to know more facts. I need to gather more information before I make educated, response to what I've seen. And what I've seen lately is very hard, because it's like, my God, that could be my son, that could be my daughter. It's like you have no words. It's like you want to be able to provide an explanation, but my God, you can't. So it's very disheartening because I live on both sides. And it is very disheartening. I don't even have an answer sometimes. All I can do is tell my children, look, whatever they're telling you to do, just do it. We can always make a complaint later. We can always file, hire an attorney and sue the pants off of them later. But I need you to be alive. So whatever they're telling you to do it. That is just my stance, period. And it's like we've come to a place where if you've committed a crime, you deserve to die. If you was combative, you deserve to die. If you didn't do what the officer tell you to do, you deserve to die. But it's like you can do all of the things that the officer has told you to do. You can comply. You can have your hands up. You can do what, and you still die. So, or have a knee on your neck. So, my God, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I don't, and it's very disheartening. And until we continue. That's why we continue to march. That's why we continue to stand together when it comes to police brutality. And as long as the officers continue to be united with the community, not against the community, but with the community, to understand that these are the reasons why. Treat us like you treat them. There should be no reason why a white suspect is afforded water. He's afforded medical attention. He's afforded all of these things, and we're treated like garbage. Just treat us like you treat them. I think that's all people want. Treat us like you treat them.
Wow. You're so right, and I guess because our kids are not oblivious of the unfair treatment. I didn't have time to send this video to my staff, but I wish I could have sent this video. I could not believe like what I was seeing in terms of the behavior of this Caucasian gentleman towards officers. Very aggressive. I think jumped in a squad car or something like that. And didn't get shot. You got to say it. I mean, I'm not going to tiptoe around the issue. I'm not going to walk on eggshells. If that had been someone who had skin that was a little darker, that would have been, a different outcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So these injustices and these differences, and like you said, the unfairness in terms of, like, all we got to do is write a bad check. Or what I'm saying? I think that's what George Floyd, what he did. I think he what was his crime? I think we talked about that.
I don't know. I believe it was a counterfeit $20 bill.
Yeah, that's what it was. I'm sorry. That's what it was. And he's not here. So that's disturbing to me. And I guess I wanted to ask you, and I thank you for your transparency, because I thought maybe I need to upgrade or alter my conversation. Maybe it's too antiquated. It's the same thing, that my father told me, and I tell I think the conversation is still the same. Just do what they tell you to do. And at the end of the day, we'll deal with everything else. You know what I'm saying? So with that, I just thank you for giving me some insight on that. I have these questions here that I want to pose to you. And I think some of what is being asked, you addressed it, but just we can follow up on it, and you can kind of revisit some of your commentary regarding these questions. So one is, as an African-American officer, do you face any backlash in the community? And if so, how do you handle that? You just talked about how you've been, people spitting on you, and, so, I mean, you can revisit if you want to, but I think you answered that.
Well, it is very frustrating as an African-American woman to be mistreated by your own kind, because outside of a uniform, I'm still Black. Mm-hmm. I'm still a mother. I'm still a wife, so I if you cut me, I'm gonna bleed, so I'm not superhuman, I'm not a robot, so I have feelings. So it's very disheartening to be mistreated by your own kind or even called a sellout for working for the white man or the government, So I mean, I gotta feed my family just like you do. So and when I took my job and swore my oath, I swore to protect and serve and to help whoever, no matter what skin tone or color they are. So it's very it's difficult, but I try to treat people the way I want to be treated. And I did want to say this one thing: the protesters and the unrest that's going on. I really understand why it's being done, but just be mindful of the why you're doing what you're doing, and that you don't want to become the very thing that you hate when you see police. So you attacking the police, or we've had people just walk up and hit a police and officer in the head or the face, and they've done nothing. You taking your frustrations out for someone else on this person who hasn't done a thing to you. So don't become the very thing that you hate. So I mean, it's very hard, and like I said, that's why my days are very numbered, because my heart it breaks when I see this stuff that's on the news and in the media, and it's like, this is not what I envisioned. My job, I felt like was rewarding and used to really fulfill me, and what I see today is not that anymore.
Wow. Well, another question is, and I think you answered this, but I'll just, for the sake of just honoring the question, as an African American officer, do you feel targeted during this time? I think you answered that. Am I right? If you want to revisit,
sometimes I do have a very strong, community of people that. Even on social media, I have a lot of people that still, thank you for your, service. Still a lot of people who are very appreciative and very pro-police, not necessarily anti-police, but pro-police, especially if you are an officer who is doing your job and doing your job correctly the way it should be done. I have gotten more thanks than I have gotten insults. So I would say.
Wow, that's okay. That's good. That's good. Is there an opportunity for officers to speak up against the violence that has now smeared the integrity of the job?
That's twofold, because sometimes, like I said, like I talked about earlier, is what you call the thin blue line. Have you ever heard of the thin blue line?
I have. Wow.
Yeah. So that's a line you're not supposed to cross.
Yeah.
And so when you start speaking out, or what they call, I mean, it's just like in the streets, snitches get stitches.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you will get talked about, you would get ridiculed, you get blackballed, you can get all of that when you speak up and you stand up for what's right. But I would rather be able to come home and get in my bed and sleep good at night, knowing that I have done my part or done my job correctly, or help someone, versus take someone's life or cover up misconduct or anything like that. I would rather take the ridicule. But yeah, it's very hard to speak up and speak out. And if you don't have that integrity, or if that's not who you are, you would turn a blind eye to a lot of the things that go on.
Yeah, and we see a lot of officers opting to do just that. So, and trust me, I know exactly what you're talking about in that regard. Absolutely. Have there been any service talks or additional courses put in place because of these past events outside of your initial education and training?
No, no, not really. When it comes to they give us a little bit of training as far as online training about how to deal with protesters and things of that nature, but nothing as of late. And because DC has just gone through this police reform stuff and these new laws that they have put in place, not really, other than what the DC Council, the police reform that the police, I'm sorry, that the City Council have just passed. So no, not really. Mm-mm.
I can only assume at some point, there may be some changes in that regard coming.
Well, what I want to say is DC police have been always been a progressive agency.
Okay.
And we have always been ahead of a lot of police departments around, and our police department has always been like a model for other agencies. And so the things that have gone on in Ferguson, the things that have gone on where George Floyd got killed, or with Breonna, we DC. I'm not gonna say we don't have those problems, or we don't have. I'm just gonna say we don't have a lot of those problems that those other agencies have. I feel like our department is very strict when it comes to the use of force. Our department is very strict when it comes to body-worn camera usage. Our department is very strict when it comes to police complaints, and officers just don't get away with a lot of the things that officers may get away with in other agencies. And it's just always been like that. And
wow.
It's been like that for a long time.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Couple of more. By me working in PG County 911, the citizens have become aggressive over the phone. How does DC dispatchers handle that during all of the police protesting?
Honestly, I can't really tell you how the police dispatchers handle it. I've never been a dispatcher, and I've never worked dispatching. I do know that dispatchers have to sit in a position where they have to get calls out quickly to the officers. They're responsible for getting all the pertinent information from the calls that come in. And so we have two different sides to our MPD communications, which you have a 911 call center, and then you have the actual police dispatchers who dispatch directly to the officers. So the same person who takes a 911 call is not the same person who dispatches a call to an officer. So the 911 callers are the ones who gather who answer 911, who gather all of the information. That information is put into the computer, and then it's forwarded over to the police dispatcher, who reads off that information and sends the actual police officer to that call. So I don't know. I can't answer anything else other than, you have different radio zones. So the radio zone that handles the protesting is not the same radio zone that may handle a call that is in somewhere else.
Okay, got it. Let's see. In DC, do officers have the right to stop your car without cause? If yes, how should we respond?
So when you say stop your car without cause, no. If an officer stops you, he should be telling you, "Hey, I'm Officer such and such. I stopped you because." Even if you don't feel like it was the right thing to do doesn't mean that he didn't have a right to do it. So, and let me just say this: there are laws that are on the books that you wouldn't even believe, but they are on the books, and officers will use these ancient old laws that are on the books because they haven't been taken off. They will use these uh, tools to stop you. You know what I'm saying? So just because you've never heard it before doesn't mean that it's not right. But as with anything, if you feel like you were unlawfully stopped, if you feel like you were racially profiled, if you feel like that the officer, whatever reason he told you was not true, you always have the option of filing a complaint. And you can always ask the officer, what's your name, what's your badge number, and get that information and make your complaint later.
Very well said. And what has been your worst experience since the escalation of this type of violence that we're seeing now?
I guess just feeling my worst experience, I guess, is just feeling helpless. Helpless because when I see the news or when I go to work and I see officers who have been attacked, or an officer had something sprayed in her eyes and was temporarily lost her vision or sight because an angry protester sprayed something in her eyes. And it makes me feel helpless because I understand why there's unrest. I understand why there's protests. But I kind of struggle with not understanding why something that happened somewhere else is happening here. Like our people did not do to George Floyd. You know, our officers did not shoot Breonna. Our officers did not, so it's just I feel helpless because although I understand, I don't understand. I don't understand why we tear up our own communities where we live, or we allow people who don't even live here tear up our stuff, because a lot of the protesters that are here, not even from here. We let them come in our community and do this stuff. But I mean, I just feel helpless. And I think that's been my worst experience throughout the whole thing, is just feeling helpless to help my brothers and sisters in my community, and then feeling helpless to help my brothers and sisters in blue.
Wow. Well, I tell you, Sarge, to hear that come from your heart, I think that means a lot in terms of giving us some understanding, who you are from a human perspective, beyond the badge, beyond the uniform, beyond your title. Just to know that you have a heart that speaks to what you just articulated, I think that needs to be heard. And I want to be, let me just say this, let me put it this way, as your pastor, thank you for your service. Some of the things that you shared tonight from a personal standpoint, I mean, I know a lot of us couldn't handle. The typical person could not handle that stuff. When you said the word spit, that right there, that's a lot going on. I'm gonna tell you that just the word, hearing the word, almost made me, Anyway, we're gonna pass that. But what I'm saying is, your service means a lot, not just yours, but I'm talking about, even your co-workers and that kind of thing. Law enforcement, period. I'm thankful. I'm thankful for you and your colleagues for what you do and what you go through to make our communities safe. I thank you, for your courage. I thank you for, being informative tonight and transparent, because a lot of us who are on this live with you, we are much better for it educationally.
Thank you.
And so, thank you so much. This has look. This shouldn't have taken this long. I'm trying to tell you now. So we may have to we may have to do a part two to this. And what I want to do, and I'll speak with you offline in terms of what we can do periodically, because you ain't got a few more years, So we got to get this stuff in before you check out. But I know that even then, you know in your heart, you will avail yourself as needed. So thank you so much for your service in the DC community and for the MCC community.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And please give my love to your husband, Pat, who is a son of the ministry as well, and your family. We really, really thank you for your time and sharing with us. Because it was much needed.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Much love to my MCC family and my family in blue.
All right. Well, there you have it. Thank you for joining us on tonight. Do me a favor, share this all over the globe. Just share, tag. I'm telling you, the information that Sergeant Love shared with us tonight, I think a lot of people, many people around the globe needs to hear this. And so I pray that you would do that. MCC, if you would like to, you can sow an offering tonight. We would do that anyway, due to it being Real Word Wednesday. So you know what's up with that. Anybody else who would like to sow a seed, you can. And even though what we're doing tonight is a little different than what we would do on Real Word Wednesday, you still can get saved tonight. Absolutely. Just put it in the comments that I want to be saved or you want to be a part of this ministry. You can do that as well. And all you have to do is just note it in the comment section and we'll make it happen in Jesus' name. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your evening. And again, it was just a privilege being with my spiritual daughter tonight. And the information that she shared was just so awesome. And I pray that you would use it uniquely and so we can make this world a better place. All right. So I'll see you on, what is this, Wednesday? I'll see you Saturday morning at 10 a.m. I'll be ministering for our Walking in Newness Radio broadcast. Walking in Newness Radio broadcast. I don't know why I can't say that clearly. But I'll be there at 10 a.m. And then Sunday, I'll be ministering, but we will have some strategies and encouragement from Dr. Monica Goldson, just keeping this thing going so you can know that we're really trying to broaden our view of ministry. And that's why we had, Dr. Preston Sunday. Tonight we had this incredible conversation with Sergeant Love, and then we'll continue it on Sunday, but I will be preaching on Sunday as well. All right. May the Lord keep you is my prayer. And guess what? You already know we are MCC strong. Good evening. I'll see you later. God bless.